want to read you this letter. This is from the Maine Attorney General to the Department of Education. We will not sign the resolution agreement. We do not have revisions or a counterproposal. We agree we are at an impasse. Nothing in Title IX or its implementing regulations prohibits schools from allowing transgender girls and women to participate on girls' and women's sports teams. Well, they must not be reading the same Title IX that we're reading. We believe they are failing to protect women, and it's not only an issue in sports, it is a public safety issue. These boys are allowed to go in women's restrooms. They are allowed to go in the women's dressing rooms and get fully naked and change in biological boys and change clothes in front of these young women. Maine's leadership has refused to comply at every turn, so now we have no other choice. We are taking them to court.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I'm recently getting up to date with the developments in Maine, and the DOJ are not messing around, and they are taking the state to court. They are fighting this to the bitter end to ensure that women's sports is protected, to ensure the protection of women and girls in Maine. They're not taking this lying down. Now, Governor Mills is continuing to double down on allowing boys to compete in sports against girls. Young girls in high school, they are having to deal with boys in their locker rooms. They're allowed to compete in girls' sports, risking the safety of these young female athletes. Mills continues to think that there is a justification for this, a justification for allowing this injustice against women and girls in the state of Maine. Why is this person so invested in allowing this to continue when even the majority of her constituents are against it? This person was competing or performing allegedly in drag shows. There's been footage that was released. People are even questioning if this person is themselves male. It's usually something that men gravitate towards, who, if that's their thing. So yeah, people have questions, but the most important thing is that the DOJ is fighting this. We saw recently in the UK how the Supreme Court has declared that when legislation was written to afford protections based on sex, it didn't have men in mind who wanted to identify as women. It was specifically written for biological females. It was specifically written for males. And that was it. No in between. And I think it's time that the courts here over in the US start doing the same thing and holding these states accountable. We all know what Title IX was for, the original purpose, and thankfully this administration is seeking to maintain the original purpose. So Attorney General Pam Bondi announced a civil lawsuit against the state of Maine Wednesday over officials' refusal to comply with the Trump administration's policies barring transgender female competitors from girls' and women's sports. I'm not too keen on the wording there. You're either male or female, that's it. The Justice Department is accusing Maine of flouting Title IX, which bars sex-based discrimination in education programs that garner federal funding. Now, thankfully, the universities in Maine, at least, are following the executive order. They have stated that they are going to comply because they don't want to lose their federal funding. So Bondi quite rightly said that this is a public safety issue because boys are allowed into the locker rooms, into girls' locker rooms. And we've seen what has happened in other states, such as Virginia, like in Loudoun County, where a boy in a dress essayed a young girl in the bathroom. There were at least 2 cases there. So it's not hyperbole to say that this is a public safety issue, no matter how much trans activists try to downplay this issue altogether. Laughing at the situation even and mocking girls who have concerns about boys being in their locker rooms. These are the people who call themselves feminists, by the way, as well. She also said, "We are considering whether to retroactively pull all the funding they have received for not complying in the past So this is very serious for the state of Maine. All of the implications that will come with losing federal funding. For some reason, this governor thinks it's worth it. The issue of allowing boys into girls' locker rooms is so important to this governor that she's putting the federal funding on the line. Very, very disturbing if you ask me. She said, "We have exhausted every other remedy. We tried to get Maine to comply. We don't like standing up here and filing lawsuits. We want to get states to comply with us." Mills said, "Today is the latest expected salvo in an unprecedented campaign to pressure the state of Maine to ignore the Constitution and abandon the rule of law. This matter has never been about school sports or the protection of women and girls, as has been claimed. It is about states' rights and defending the rule of law against the federal government bent on imposing its will instead of upholding the law." To think that Mills has the audacity to say that this isn't about protecting women and girls, that she has the audacity to make such a claim when that's all this is about.
My first experience was when I was 13 years old. I was going to change for gym, and I walked into the locker room, and there was a biological male there. From that point on, my junior year, I competed in Nordic skiing and lost to a biological male numerous of times. I am fighting this fight for generations to come. And the fact that our governor can look the women of our state in the eyes and say, "I'm not going to fight for you," is heartbreaking, and it's betrayal, like Riley said. I just want to thank all these women standing behind me and President Trump for fighting for us, because even though my own governor isn't fighting for me, I know there are people out there fighting for me.
So I compete in soccer and indoor track and outdoor track. And like was mentioned previously today, I had to watch at the Maine Class B State Indoor Track Championship as my close friend and my teammate and other female competitors lost the state championship to a biological male. And this was heartbreaking for me to have to watch. And Riley said that it's betrayal, and that's what it is. It is the job of our elected officials to protect our young female athletes, and they have failed to do that. We walk into sports expecting to have a level playing field, and to walk into the state championship to see a biological male there and to lose to a biological male, that's betrayal. And so I am extremely grateful to AG Bondi for standing up for us when our elected officials aren't doing that. And on behalf of the girl athletes in Maine, I just want to say thank you all, and I look forward to having a level playing field back after this fight. So thank you.
Why doesn't this governor listen to these young ladies? Why be disingenuous and say that this is about fighting the federal government? Do these young ladies care about that? All they're focused on is having a level playing field when it comes to sports, is not being in a locker room with boys. So why on earth is Governor Mills not listening to them, not listening to her constituents? And I say her very loosely. Why is she not listening to the people of Maine who are telling you that we have common sense and we don't think it's right for boys to be competing against girls? I don't care about identity. They're still boys. If this was about the federal government having its way and bullying these states, are you saying that these girls are in on it? They're in on it too. They're trying to push this agenda that the federal government has? No. All they know is that when they go to school, they want to compete against girls in the girls category. They want to be in the locker room with other girls. That's it. And this is for their protection and this is for their safety. But their own state governor is ignoring those needs and those rights.
You said you're considering pulling money from the state of Maine. So that decision has not been made, I assume, and still pending. Why would you not revoke funds from the state of Maine as the movement happened against Harvard just yesterday?
Well, we have filed the lawsuit today. The lawsuit is filed as of this morning. So, yes, we will be pulling funds from Maine. Not only that, Bill, we want to restore the records of these young women. You know, these women lost records. One didn't go to regionals, one didn't go to state, all because of a boy. All of these records should be restored, not only in Maine, but around the country, of these young women. You know, Riley Gaines started training for swimming when she was 4 years old. She made it to the Olympics. A lot of this around the country is being taken away from young women now because boys are competing in women's sports. And it's more than that. It's a safety issue. They are completely changing clothes, getting nude in young women's bathrooms. Try being the parents of these young women. It's ridiculous what they're doing. They're going in the restrooms, they're going in the locker rooms. Our young women throughout this country should not have to go through this. And under President Trump's directive, we're going to fight to keep women safe and women winning in women's sports throughout this country.
It is pretty shocking
Not even
that
a close
no
call,
women.
Dana.
It's shocking to me that no women in the previous administration came to the same conclusion. Like, I don't know. You fought for Title IX initially. Why don't you fight for these girls now? But the governor of Maine, she plans to push back. This is what she said.
Because there are maybe at most two transgender athletes competing in Maine schools right now, they decided to shut off funding. The law says if you don't like what a state or entity is doing over here, you can't take their funds away over here.
Is she wrong?
Yeah, she's very wrong. First, to say only two is shocking. We gave two examples, but these aren't transgender. First of all, these are boys in a girl's locker room.
The same old tired argument is all they can come up with. Oh, it's only 2, it's only 10, it's only this, it's only that. They never address the number of girls who have been disenfranchised, though, by these 1 or 2 or 10 athletes. Never address that. One boy in a girl's locker room is one too many. Look how much trouble Leah Thomas caused. Riley Gaines said that 14,000 female athletes were disenfranchised because of the one Leah Thomas being allowed to compete. Girls missed out on winning a state championship. Records have been taken for female athletes. So it doesn't matter that it's just 2. It's too many. And it's not just 2 girls being affected by this. Again, that would be unacceptable, even if it was 1 girl affected by this. No girl should be put through this. But I guarantee you, it's certainly more than 2 girls being affected by allowing boys to compete in their category. And what these girls have lost, they can never get back. I like the fact that Pam Bondi is talking about restoring records. That is going to be necessary, unfortunately. But even when they do restore records, they can't turn back the clock and change the outcome of these young ladies applying for colleges, for example, or turn back the clock and allow them to compete again at the state championship and actually stand atop the podium. They can never get that time back. It's absolutely unforgivable what has been stolen from these female athletes. And all Mills can say is that it's only 2. What a slap in the face to the girls in her state, to the women in her state. What a slap in the face. A slap in the face to the parents who have genuine, valid concerns. What a disgusting response. Very dismissive. How did these people get elected? Unfortunately, I can only conclude that the people of Maine were bamboozled.
1 is too many. It's ridiculous what she said, and doesn't just affect one young woman. It affects the entire team, the entire sport within that school. These young women are not being able to compete because of a boy. The boy in 2024 came in 43rd in his category in track and field. Yet, when he competed in the women's sport, he won. You know, Governor Mills shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have done this, should be supporting women in the state of Maine. And we're going to fight for them if they're not.
Absolutely unbelievable. And these are the people who claim to care about women and girls. No, you care about entitled males who want to infringe upon women and girls and their sports and their locker rooms. That's who you're fighting for. And it's absolutely disgusting. Enough of this. So I hope, real consequences need to be felt. And it doesn't look like this governor is backing down. It really doesn't. That's very disturbing indeed. And if anything, all the things that she's accusing the federal government of doing, she is doing on a state level, being very authoritarian. My way or the highway. Forget what your constituents want. Forget the valid concerns that the girls in your state have voiced. My way or the highway. So let's hope that precedents are going to be set, that the courts will restore the true meaning of what it means to be a woman, the definition of a woman, and that the courts end this once and for all. like they did in the UK. Unfortunately, the Democrats are still not supporting bills such as the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, which sought to write the purpose of the executive order into law. The Democrats aren't supporting that. And it's very, very concerning that they still double down on this insanity, even though it's hurting their own party. Because the majority of people in this country have spoken. It's about time that the party that cried democracy, it's about time that they actually start practicing what they preach and listening to the people that they claim to represent, rather than saying it's my way or the highway and forcing people to go along with this ridiculous ideology that we do not believe in and is hurting women and girls. So yeah, if you're going to talk about state funding and state, laws, and we're following state laws this, we're following state laws that, then the state can fund themselves. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.